Okay, absolute value equations. These are the type of equations we're going to be working with today. And before I go ahead and get started on actually solving these, let's go over a couple of rules, what absolute value means, and kind of the definition, working definition of what absolute value is. Okay, absolute value is the distance that the number is away from zero. Okay, so here we have a number line. Here's 0. Okay, here are all the positive numbers. Okay, here's 0. Here are all the negative numbers. Okay, what absolute value is doing is asking you how far away from 0 is a number. Okay, so if we have two numbers, let's say absolute value of -7 and absolute value of +7. Okay, so let's say we start here at 0 and we go this direction to 7. Okay, we're asking ourselves, how far away from 0 is this number? Okay, it's 7 units away. Similarly, if we go in the opposite direction here, if we go from 0 to -7, okay, how far away from 0 is this number? Okay, it's 7 units away. But you might say, yeah, but that's a -7. Well, that's true, it's a negative number, but we're asking how far away from 0 is that negative number? Okay, that negative number is 7 units away. So what that means is that you have here -7, the absolute value. We're going to say that that equals a +7. Okay, same thing with the +7. We're going to say that that equals, the absolute value of +7 also equals +7. So the question that you're asking yourself is, how far away from 0 is a number? Okay, how far away from 0 is it? Okay, so what that does is it kind of turns negative numbers, when you use an absolute value, it turns negative numbers into positive numbers. Okay, so if I have, let's say I have the absolute value of -3. Okay, the absolute value of 5. Okay, the absolute value of -3, we're going to say that that's +3. Okay, the absolute value of +5, that's +5. See, whether or not you start with a negative or you start with a positive, when you're taking the absolute value, you're always going to get a positive here as a result. Okay, so once again, going back to our number line, let's say that I'm starting off at 0. Okay, here's +4. Here's -4. Okay, the absolute value of this distance from 0 to -4, the absolute value is just going to be 4. Same thing here, from 0 to +4, the absolute value is 4. Okay, and what this means is this rule here, that whenever I take off an absolute value sign, if I go from this step to this step here, okay, here I have something with absolute value signs. Let's say absolute value of 4, and we're saying that equals, let's just say it equals A. Okay, when I take these absolute value signs off, that now 4 becomes plus or minus A. And the reason why we have to do this plus or minus goes back to this definition here. Okay, how far away from 0 is it? See, we don't know. We don't know this absolute value. We don't know. That could be a negative number or that could be a positive number. Okay, we don't know because of the definition. How far away from 0 is it? So that means that whenever you take down these absolute value signs, you have to add a plus or a minus, okay, to the other side of this equal sign here. So here's kind of the first rule, rule number 1. I would write this rule down. This is really important, that whenever you take off these absolute value signs, okay, that you have to add a plus or a minus to whatever's on the other side of the equal sign. Okay, the second rule is kind of this one here, that if you have absolute value of x, okay, the absolute value of x equals x when x is greater than 0. Okay, the absolute value of x equals 0 when x equals 0. Okay, the absolute value of x equals -x when x is less than 0. Okay, what does this mean? Okay, if I have the absolute value of 7, that's a positive number. Okay, x is greater than 0. 7 is greater than 0. Okay, so that means that when I take these absolute value signs off, okay, that it just equals x. Okay, here we have the absolute value of x, absolute value of 7. X is greater than 0. When I take these absolute value signs off, okay, I just get x. So in this case, I just get 7. Okay, if I have the absolute value of negative 8, okay, absolute value of negative 8, absolute value of some number equals negative x when x is less than 0. Okay, we see negative 8 is less than 0. Negative 8 is less than 0. So when you take these absolute value signs off, absolute value of x equals negative x when x is less than 0. Okay, what does that mean? That means that it's negative 8. Okay, here we have x is less than 0. So we kind of have to tack this negative sign. When these absolute value signs come down, we kind of change them out to parentheses. Okay, that you have to tack a negative sign out in front. So now we get an absolute value of negative 8 equals positive 8. Okay, so these are kind of the rules you need to know. And I'm going to go ahead and leave these up there while we're working with these so you could kind of see how this is going to work. Here's important rule number 1. Just remember, when you take these signs off, or these absolute value signs off, you have to do a plus or minus. And basically, whenever you have a negative number inside this absolute value sign, that when you take these down, turn them into parentheses, you're going to have to tack a negative sign out in front. Okay, that's what this means. All right, working with our first problem here. Okay, absolute value of negative 6m equals 30. Okay, we're going to go ahead and use our first kind of set of rules here. That when I take this absolute value sign down, okay, that this becomes negative 6m equals plus or minus 30. Okay, let me kind of scoot this up a little bit. So that means that negative 6m equals positive 30, or negative 6m equals negative 30. Okay, now solving this one, 30 divided by negative 6, we get m equals negative 5. Or here we have negative 30 divided by negative 6, m equals positive 5. Okay, this is how it kind of works. When you're taking down these absolute value signs, that you need to replace it with plus or minus here. All right, let's try an easier one. Maybe something like the absolute value of b divided by 5. We're going to say that equals 1. Okay, so that means that when we take these absolute value signs off, okay, we get b over 5. We're going to say that equals plus or minus 1. Okay, so b over 5 equals 1, or b over 5 equals negative 1. Okay, so on this top one, we get b equals 1 times 5, that's 5. This one down here at the bottom, b equals negative 5. Okay, pretty simple. Just kind of going off our first rule here that when you're taking these absolute value signs off, you have to put a plus or minus. So here's our positive, here's our minus. So we get our answer. Our answer is either 5 or negative 5. Okay, either one of these answers will work. And let's kind of go ahead and kind of show you the proof of this. Okay, going off these rules that I've been showing you. So let's do this first one here, positive 5. Let's put that in for b here. So we have absolute value of 5 over 5, and we're saying that equals 1. Okay, well, as we know, anything that we have here we have a number that's greater than 0. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 1 is greater than 0. So it's just x when x is greater than 0. Okay, so that kind of checks out. Now here we have negative 5. Let's do negative 5 over 5, the absolute value. And we're saying that equals 1. Okay, we're just simply plugging in this -5 here for B. So what we get when we do this is we have that -5 over 5. -5 over 5. Okay, let's rewrite that as -1. Okay, -5 over 5 equals -1. Okay, so here we have a number. This number is less than 0. Okay, -1 is less than 0. So what we have to do, okay, when we're taking down this absolute value sign, okay, we have to kind of do like this, -1. See, you kind of have to put a -x when x is less than 0. Here x is less than 0, so we have to put this negative sign out in front. And then once a negative times a negative, we get a positive. So this answer also checks out. So this is kind of how you could check your answers here, by using this key to how it works. And we're going to go through a couple more practice problems. I'm pretty sure you get the hang of it. It's not very difficult to do. Okay, here we have our next problem. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and take down these absolute value signs. We get -2n plus 6. Now we have to add this plus or minus here, just like the rule I've been telling you. Okay, so that means that -2n plus 6 can equal +6, or -2n plus 6 equals -6. Okay, simply put in, here's the positive version, here's the negative version. So now solving for n. Solving for n for this first one. First thing we do, transpose and apply, subtract 6 from both sides. Subtract 6 from both sides. So we get -2n equals 0. Now divide both sides by -2. We get n equals 0. Okay, or adding 6 or subtracting 6 from both sides. Subtracting 6 from both sides, we get -2n equals -12. So n equals -12 divided by -2 gives us a +6. So n can equal 0 or n can equal 6. Okay, those are the answers that we got here. Here's our solution set, 0 and 6. Let's go ahead and plug these numbers 0 and 6. Let's plug them back in and see if we can make this ring true. Okay, so let's plug in 0. We have absolute value of -2 times 0 plus 6 equals 6. Okay, the absolute value, -2 times 0. -2 times 0 is just 0. Plus 6 equals 6. So we have the absolute value of 6 equals 6. Okay, we know that's true. Anytime you get a positive number, you're taking the absolute value of a positive number, you get a positive number as a result. So this is true. Okay, let's plug in the number 6 here now. We have absolute value of -2 times 6 plus 6. We're saying that equals 6. Okay, the absolute value. Okay, -2 times 6. We have the absolute value. -2 times 6, that's -12. Plus 6, absolute value equals 6. So we have the absolute value, -12 plus 6. -12 plus 6 gives us -6. Okay, so is the absolute value of -6, does that equal 6? Well, yes, it does. I was showing you earlier that -6, you take the absolute value of a negative number, you're going to get a positive number as a result. Okay, so that checks out. And the reason why it checks out is because of this rule here. Okay, x is less than 0, -6 is less than 0, so we're kind of doing this. Okay, is -x when x is less than 0. So here's the negative. X is less than 0 equals -x. Here's x, -6 equals -x when x is less than 0. All right, absolute value of -4 plus 5x equals 16. So we're going to take these absolute value signs off. We get -4 plus 5x. We're going to say that equals plus or minus 16. Okay, so that means that I'm going to go ahead and move this up just a little bit. Okay, that means that negative 4 plus 5x equals positive 16, or negative 4 plus 5x equals negative 16. Okay, solving for x on this first one here. We'll do our transpose and apply. So here we have negative 4. That's 4 is being subtracted from the left-hand side. To get rid of it on the left-hand side, we have to add 4 here and add 4 here. Okay, adding 4 to both sides, we get 5x equals 16 and 4. That gives us 20. Okay, all I did is just doing your transpose and apply. So now we can solve for x. Here we have x is being multiplied by 5. Okay, x is multiplied by 5. So to get rid of it, we need to divide both sides by 5. Okay, dividing the left-hand side by 5, all we're left with is x. 20 divided by 5 gives us 4. So here we get our first portion of our answer, x equals 4. Okay, over here, once again, negative 4, 4 is being subtracted. To get rid of it on both sides, we need to add 4 to both sides. So that gets rid of it on the left-hand side. So we're left with 5x equals negative 16 plus 4. Negative 16 plus 4 gives us a negative 12. Okay, negative 16 plus 4 gives us a negative 12. So now we need to divide both sides by 5. So we get x equals negative 12 over 5. Okay, so there's our solution set. 4 and negative 12 over 5. Okay, either one of these numbers, once plugged back into our original absolute value equation here, will make this ring true. So let's go ahead and plug these back in and see if it's true. Okay, so plugging these answers back in, I'm going to go ahead and move this up here. Okay, let's plug in the number here, number 4. Let's plug it in for x. So we have the absolute value of negative 4 plus 5 times 4 equals 16. Okay, so that means the absolute value of negative 4 plus 5 times 4 is 20 equals 16. So we have the absolute value of 16 equals 16. Okay, that's true. Why is that true? Because here, x is greater than 0. Okay, 16 is greater than 0. So when x is greater than 0, it just equals x. When the absolute value of x, when the absolute value of x is greater than 0, it just equals x. Okay, so that's true. Okay, let's go ahead and plug in negative 12 over 5. So erasing this, we get absolute value of negative 4 plus 5 times negative 12 over 5 equals 16. Okay, so we have the absolute value of negative 4 plus. Now, this 5 and this 5 cancel out. Okay, essentially what you're doing is multiplying two fractions together. So this and this cancel out. So you get negative 4 plus negative 12. Okay, equals 16. Okay, negative 4 plus negative 12, that gives us an absolute value of negative 16 equals 16. Okay, once again, going up to our key here, that absolute value of x equals negative x when x is less than 0. So here x is less than 0. Okay, so absolute value of x when x is less than 0 equals negative x. So that means that we're doing like this. Negative 16 equals 16. And that's true. Negative times negative gives us a positive. So both of these answers check out. 4 and negative 12 over 5. This is our solution set to this problem here. Okay, let's go over a couple more problems with a kind of a spin on it. Okay, so let's do another example kind of similar to that. Here we have absolute value of 5x plus 5. We're saying that equals 45. Now before, like I was just saying, before you take these down, you have to kind of get the absolute value by itself. So we have 5x, we subtract 5 here, subtract 5 here. Okay, 5x now equals 40. Okay, now you could take the absolute value signs down and add this plus or minus. Okay, and add this plus or minus. So you want to get it by itself. Here we have it by itself. You want to get it by itself on the left-hand side of the equation. Okay, the left-hand side of this equation, you want to get the absolute value signs by itself before you take it down and do the plus or minus. Okay, so now we have, 5x equals positive 40 or 5x equals negative 40. So we get x equals 40 divided by 5 gives us a positive 8, and negative 40 divided by 5 gives us a negative 8. So here's our solution set, 8 and negative 8. Okay, so now I'm going to throw kind of two challenges on here for you. We have this 3 being multiplied by the absolute value of negative 8x, and then we have this positive 8 here kind of stuck on the end. So once again, what we need to do is we need to get this absolute value expression here kind of by itself on the left-hand side. And to do this, first step we're going to do is subtract 8 from both sides. Okay, so now we have 3 times the absolute value of negative 8x equals 80 minus 8, that gives us 72. Okay, and now we need to get, once again, we need to get this absolute value by itself. So we're going to divide both sides by 3. Okay, that cancels out here and here. What we're left with is the absolute value of negative 8x equals. Okay, now at this point we could take down the absolute value sign. So we have the absolute value all by itself on the left-hand side of this equation. Okay, that's our goal. First thing you want to do, get this absolute value by itself. So now we could say that negative 8x equals plus or minus 24. Okay, taking down the absolute value signs, this is what we're left with. Okay, if you don't have this written down, go ahead and write it all down. I'm going to erase this stuff here. And here we have what we're working with now. So negative 8x equals positive 24, or negative 8x equals negative 24. Okay, x equals 24 divided by negative 8. That gives us negative 3. Or x equals negative 24 divided by negative 8 gives us a positive 3. So there's our solution set, negative 3 and 3. Okay, once again, I just want to remind you that whenever you're working with these absolute value signs, that you want to get get the absolute value by itself on the left-hand side of the equation. So do all the operations that are outside of the absolute value sign first. All right, so absolute value of 7p plus 4, okay, is being divided by 8, and we're going to say that equals 3. So to get this absolute value expression by itself, we need to get rid of this 8 in the denominator. And to do that, we simply multiply both sides by 8, okay, times 8, times 8. And what that does is it cancels it out here. What we're left with on the left is the absolute value of 7p plus 4. And we're going to say 3 times 8, that equals 24. Okay, now at this point, we could take off the absolute value sign. So we have 7p plus 4. We're going to say that equals plus or minus 24. Okay, what that means is 7p. Let me see if I can move some of this stuff around here so I can come up with a little bit of space. What that means is that 7p plus 4, that equals positive 24. Okay, or 7p plus 4 equals negative 24. Okay, here the first one, solving for p, subtract 4 from both sides. What we have here is 7p equals 20. Okay, just subtracting 4 from both sides. Okay, that means that p equals 20 over 7. Here's our first answer. Okay, for the second one, 7p plus 4 equals negative 24. Subtract 4 from here, subtract 4 from here, subtracting 4 from both sides. We get 7p equals negative 28. So that means that p equals negative 4. Okay, negative 28 divided by 7 gives us negative 4. So our answer we have here, we have our solution set. We have negative 4 and 20 over 7. Okay, once again, just want to keep reminding you of this because it's really important. When you're solving these absolute value equations, you want to get the absolute value, okay, and everything inside the absolute value, whatever's the absolute value, you want to get it by itself, okay, on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, either way, you want to get it by itself. That means you need to take care of all these other operations that are going on outside of it. Whatever's going on outside of it, like this one is divided by 8, you want to do all these other operations first, okay, before you take these signs down. All right, here we have our problem. Okay, here's our absolute value. Here's everything going on inside. Okay, these are going on outside of this absolute value expression here. These are going on outside of it. So we need to take care of these, okay, before we could drop this sign here. Okay, remember that the 6 here, this is being multiplied here. So if you want, you could put this little multiplication symbol. And whenever you're kind of deconstructing this stuff, you always want to attack the plus or minus first. Okay, so here we have this minus sign. You want to deconstruct these by getting rid of the plus or minus before you get into the multiplication or division normally. So what that means is we're going to add 9 to both sides. First step, we're going to add 9 to both sides. Okay, so plus 9 cancels it out, plus 9. So we're left with 6 times absolute value of 1 minus 5x equals, we have 57 plus 9. That gives us 66. Okay, next thing we want to do is here this 6 is being multiplied against this absolute value. So to get rid of this 6 being multiplied, we do the opposite operation. We divide by 6. Okay, divide by 6, divide by 6. Remember, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. What that does is it cancels it out over here. So we're left with absolute value of 1 minus 5x. And we're saying that equals 11. Okay, 66 divided by 6 equals 11. Okay, now at this point, we have this absolute value on the left-hand side. We have it all by itself. Okay, we took care of all the operations that were going on outside of it. So now we could drop these signs. So we have 1 minus 5x. We're going to say that equals plus or minus 11. So that means that 1 minus 5x equals positive 11, or 1 minus 5x equals negative 11. Okay, solving the top one first. 1 minus 5x, okay, to get rid of this 1, we're going to subtract it. Remember what I just said, that when you're deconstructing something, you usually want to get rid of the plus and minus before you get rid of this multiplication. Okay, this is a multiplication, negative 5 times x. Here this is just a positive 1. So to get rid of the positive 1, we subtract 1 from both sides. Okay, what we're left with is negative 5x equals 10. Okay, dividing both sides by negative 5, we get x equals negative 2. Okay, 10 divided by negative 5 gives us negative 2. Okay, once again, we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So now we have negative 5x equals negative 11 minus 1. That gives us negative 12. Okay, to get x by itself, we divide both sides by negative 5. So we get x equals 12 over 5. Negative 12 divided by negative 5 equals 12 over 5. Okay, these negative signs kind of cancel out. So our solution set for this problem, we have negative 2 and 12 over 5. Okay, you made it to the end of this video. I want to thank you for watching. You made it to the end. Please press the like button down below. If you have a comment or suggestion you want to make, go ahead and do that in the comments down below, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thank you.